time it is. Marvin Devine, Huber, Axel, and you know how we do. Yeah, I got the juice. Big game cool, make them look like cool. Always play cool, that's the biggest rule. Fuck it, what they doing, keep on doing. I've been making loot since like 22. Ask me how I made it right here in the booth. I'm always pursued cause of what I pursue. That's greatness, yeah, I gotta make it, I got things to lose. Boy, just wanna get in my crew, but you can't get in my crew. Me, XL and Huber, way too fireable. When this joint drop, better call the troops. And when you hear the drop, better raise the roof. Better raise the roof. You already know what happens when we link up. Let's go. Yeah.
My guys know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep waves by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cody's brothers, my guys know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep waves by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cody's brothers, my guys know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep waves by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.
Hey, happy Monday, happy Labor Day Monday, everybody. I'm so glad to see you. Welcome back to Bella's Hope for Healing, formerly known as Sisters Against Kidney Disease. I am your hostess, Bella Langston, and we're going to really enjoy the show tonight, let me tell you. But before we get started, I really want you to do a few things. And I want to always wish anybody a happy birthday whose birthday may be today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You know, we show on Facebook, YouTube, live, and if anyone misses it, you can always go back and look at it. The show is recorded afterwards. Don't forget to do what? Bam! Smash that like button, everybody. Smash it down hard. And don't forget to share, because sharing is caring. Let's not forget to do that either. Also, ask questions. I implore you to do that. Make your comments. Welcome. It's a way of welcoming our guests. Everybody has, things going on in life, and it's just really a blessing to have these guests come on our show and share their experiences with you. So please, let them know that they're welcome. Let them know that you appreciate them, and don't be afraid to ask them something about their experience. Most of them are very good about answering questions. Shout out also to my producer, Jared. Shout out to Urban Health Outreach Media and all my co-hosts on the show. I love you guys. So let me ask you guys a question. What is it that really moves you in your spirit? Something that really makes you think about your life or about the life of your loved ones, your children, your parents, your siblings, whoever, people that are special to you. What if death one day came staring you right in the face and said, there you are, I've been looking for you. And then all of a sudden, bam, at the hands of someone else, you survived a tragic accident. Would you be angry? Would you want revenge? Or would you just simply be forgiving and consider yourself grateful and even blessed because of that? That's pretty deep to ask yourself. Well, my guest tonight was once facing a tragic situation in that valley. And his name is Robert Chelsea. I'm not sure if he grew up, so let me rephrase that, but he resides currently in Los Angeles, California. He has one beautiful daughter named Ebony, and he was self-employed up until 2013 when he was in his vehicle experiencing car trouble, when suddenly, what do? We pull over when we're experiencing car trouble. Another car comes barreling into him with such force, and I'm sure also speed, that it literally caused his vehicle, Robert's vehicle, to explode. And due to that explosion, he experienced between 60 to 70% of burns all over his body, severe internal injuries, I'm sure, but mostly he took a really bad injury to his face and his hands. And this in turn led into Robert needing a face transplant. And let me also say that Robert is 68 years of age. He is the first African-American to receive a face transplant in the United States of America. There are only 15 people in the US that have had face transplants, and in the world, 44. So face transplantation is not as prevalent as our other organs. So this is what really makes this story so wonderful and unique. And you're going to get to see that when Robert comes out to speak to us. Also, what Roger has done since that time, which I think is really awesome, is he has created and established the Robert Chelsea Foundation, which serves to encourage more individuals to become donors and improve relations in the community through education and encouragement. Some of the same stuff we're doing, and I love that. With us also is his godson, Everett. And I know Everett was a wonderful part of his caregiver as he was recovering. But what I love also is that I kind of consider him like a really awesome speaker liaison for Robert. So without further ado, Jared, let's bring our guest out here tonight. Please welcome them. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Was that an intro for you guys or what?
That's quite an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ricky, for being here. And thank you, Robert, for being so gracious as to bless us with your presence tonight and to come and share your story. I really, really appreciate you guys for that. And so
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I just want to add one of the things, not that it matters, but
yeah.
Robert is also the oldest person in the world to receive a full face
transplant. Thank you. Thank you. I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that, Ricky. Wow. But it's not that you look like it though, Robert. You look good.
That's right.
You look real good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to go right into it because everybody is really excited. I know I've been getting inboxes for the last couple of days about, you coming on to the show. So my first question for you is going to be to tell us about just that life-altering event itself that caused you to have such devastating injuries and which eventually ended up leading into you requiring a face transplant, and just a little and about the little process of it, if you would.
Not quite sure whether I went to a lot of hospitals, and I was really in the hospital for about a year and a half, and as a result of that, I had a lot of plastic surgeons, a lot of dermatologists, and facial construction type surgeons that would interview me and just take a look at my condition. Most of them ended up saying they couldn't do a lot except give me a flap, like on my lips in particular. They had to make a flap, possibly out of my skin, and it wouldn't have any nerve endings so that I could control my upper or bottom lip. It would just cover it so that it would protect my teeth. So my very last interview with a plastic surgeon happened to be at Kaiser Hospital, where this particular individual, his name was Dr. Walter Chang, he had a friend who had studied under my surgeon, Dr. Bolden Tomahawk at Brigham Women's Hospital. So as a result of the plastic surgeon, Dr. Chang, having a friend that studied under Dr. Tomahawk, they thought it would be a good idea to meet them. And Dr. Tomahawk called me, and of course, then he decided to ask me to come to Boston. I came for 3 days, my sister and I, and subsequently had a 5-day interview. And through those interviews, the primary discussions and evaluations were with virtually every different kind of surgeon, anesthesiologist, pharmaceutical, general medicine, hematology, oncology, plastic surgeons, it was at least 30 some odd surgeons in the room. So that gives you an idea. It was a variety of people that had to evaluate me before they decided to certify me as a transplant recipient or transplant candidate.
Thank you. So I'm going to and just because I saw a brief question from someone in the audience where that was performed, I believe that was in Boston, correct?
Yes,
it was at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. But the other thing I wanted to mention, Chelsea, is just for the audience so people know, while it was rigorous to kind of queue up for the face transplant, the reason was not for aesthetic purposes. It was for very functional reasons. There are several. that include eating, drinking, and my favorite is just being able to kiss his daughter. So the fact is, he could not eat or drink without having to throw his head backwards in order to keep fluids and food in his mouth. So there was a very important reason why he would sign up for such an arduous procedure.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Ricky, for sharing that. I can imagine that because I mean, we, only had the one picture posted of Robert for the advertisement, but he was kind enough to show me actually quite a few and several. And I don't know if I'm correct in this, but it appeared to me as though even the one we utilized for the advertisement, he looked like that. It looked as though he had started to gradually get a little better, with his skin tone and everything, because I saw some early on photos that really just, broke my heart. So I'm going to put a pin just in this for a second, because if you don't mind, Robert, I want to take it back a little bit to the day of the accident. And could you just kind of share with us, like, where, kind of like how that transpired, how that whole thing transpired, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
I don't mind at all.
Thank you.
I don't think Daniel would mind that he was thrown in the lion's den, because he came out rejoicing. So it's a wonderful thing, in spite of how it may look or sound, but nevertheless, when God has his hand in a certain condition, no matter what we go through, it's not a time to keep it from anyone, but it's the time to rejoice and testify. So I'm glad to let you know. As you mentioned, I was in a car, and a drunk driver drove over to the shoulder of the freeway and ran into me. The car went up in the air and came down and blew up. And as a result of that, of course, all the fire was all around. But just seemed like the Lord just said, "Go to the left," and there was a big tunnel of fire. And on the passenger side, it wasn't quite as much fire, but I couldn't get over the console, and I just responded. He said, "Go to the left." I went to the left, and as I started going out of the tunnel, a good Samaritan, showed up and assisted me out of the fire. The cars were still flying by, and we went and checked to see if the other guy was okay, and he had not been hurt or anything. And Richard Robles is a good Samaritan. He assisted me to a safe area. And of course, when the police came and the fire, I was conscious all that time. Richard can tell you a little bit more, but he told me that he tried to assist me to get to another area and grab my arm, but my arm was melting. So that'll give you an idea. But I didn't realize that I was melt. I knew I was hot, but I had no idea that it was that severe. And so I gave the fire department the information they needed. And then when I sat down on the gurney, I laid down thinking that somebody would meet me at the hospital and check me over, and then one of my loved ones would take me home. So, because I didn't know that I was in that kind of condition. So when I laid down on the gurney, I called myself resting and going to sleep, and I woke up 6 months later. So I was in a coma from August 2015 to February 2014.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. That is, you know what it makes me think about? I mean, you and I got to talk a while. We had some great conversation preparing a few days ago for the show. And as a former police officer, I have been on so many scenes of traffic accidents that our department called major accidents. That would have been considered a major accident handles. And one thing I do know, oftentimes people go into shock right away. You don't even know what's happened to you. When people get shot, a lot of times they don't even know it. Oftentimes, depending on the intensity of the wound, where it's at. And it sounds to me, because when you said, "Oh, we walked over there to see if he was okay," I'm like, "Oh my God, right. You know what, baby? Bye. You know this. You were still conscious." And so that in itself was a God move. I mean, and then to proceed on to you know, the ER, and then lapse into, it's like everything kicked in suddenly, and pow, you're in a coma, as you stated, and wake up 6 months later. You know, it's just it's just amazing to me. And I was going to ask you, Ricky, you know, that's a perfect time to ask you this question. How difficult was it for you and your family the first time you guys, I mean, I know from the beginning of hearing about this travesty, and then going to the hospital, if you guys were even allowed to see him at that particular time, how was that? And what did the doctors actually tell you that his prognosis was at that time?
Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you how traumatic it was. I think the person that took the greatest brunt of this was his daughter, Ebony. But when I got the phone call, I'm based on the East Coast in New York. Chelsea's in Los Angeles. I got the call, and just to set the scene, it was August. I was on the beach in the Hamptons enjoying a sunset. So to get a call that a loved one has been struck by a drunk driver and that it might be a deadly accident is, you know, it's overwhelming. So I recall getting the call and kind of falling to the sand, just saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." But when I hear the story recounted by Richard Robles, who was on the scene at the time it happened, and then when I hear Ebony, his daughter, tell the story, it's unimaginable what we were up against. Ebony got the call and was immediately rushed to the hospital to be by his side, along with her mother and other loved ones. And I have to say, there were several times that the message was brought out that he might not survive. So it was, you know, hit and miss, come and go. We're not sure what's going to happen.
Wow. Yeah. So you guys were able to actually see him once you got there, or Ebony was able to see him?
So I'm not sure she was able to. They were literally in a waiting room and just getting messages from the lead doctor at the time. So there was family and loved ones in the room, and literally what we were told is that he might not make it. So it would really be significant to have Ebony on, but sometimes it's really hard for her to recount this. I mean, I've heard her tell the story several times, and each time she tells the story, it's like she's there. I mean, it is that impactful to her.
Wow. So, wow. Yes, I can only imagine. It's like she's reliving it again. I get that. And in devastation and things like that, that is exactly, generally, it's very difficult to recount those type of things. But so Robert, okay, so let's go back to you wake up 6 months later, I believe you stated. And what are you told at that point? Tell me how you felt waking up. I mean, were you still in, did you think that you were still in the time that you were in? So tell us a little bit about that.
While I was in the coma, I really didn't But when they tell me I woke up, I didn't realize I had been in a coma. It took about 3 weeks for me to be fully convinced, because all through the time I was in this coma, I had a friend that seemed to he comforted me in such a way that anytime I would ask how my daughter was doing, uh, I just was given the assurance that she was doing well. That whatever I asked, seemed like this friend, I just had complete confidence in him, and every day was just a very pleasant day. And so the only way I knew that I woke up out the coma was all the nurses and doctors and everyone. They came and he's a miracle man, and they're calling me by my nickname, and I don't even know these people. They have me strapped down in the bed, legs and arms, and they're telling me I've been in a coma all this time. So other friends and families would started coming and trying to convince me that I was, but things had still had continued even after the coma to be so pleasant. So it took a while for me to be fully convinced that I was in a coma. And even since then, it's been a pleasant journey in spite of how it looks. And, the photographs and pictures are real, but the, the, the spirit that God has uh, provided for me through it all has been in such a comfort that I have, I don't have any regrets. It's. I know you mentioned uh, how you might feel going back and checking on the other guy. Well, what else are you going to do? I mean, this is an accident. It wasn't, to me, it was no more than an accident. So why not check on and see if anybody's okay? Everybody's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. And just your whole attitude is just, what makes this so great. So I'm gonna assume also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that unless you already knew, that is the time to which when you awoke from the coma, that you found out, or you knew already that you had sustained these severe burns, because I want you to take us into the up and coming. Hey, we're gonna, the part where you are starting to look at a face transplant is what I'm saying. How that led.
I'm glad you brought me to that point, because I did not know how severely I had been burned even after I got out of the coma. But I did, you're in the bed, so you can see your arms and your legs. I don't see I can't see my neck and chest and head, but I could see, everything else. And I could see that, okay, I know I was burned. But, and I couldn't speak either for about 4 weeks or so. I couldn't speak at all. And so I had to write things down and, make hand motions and so on. And finally, about 8 months into the hospital, they started trying to get me out of bed. And they put me in a wheelchair to wheel me out to the hallway. As we wheeled out, there was a bathroom towel holder, aluminum towel holder. And, it has a reflection on it. So as we were passing the bathroom, I saw the towel holder with the reflection of my face. So that's when I realized, this is so many people that told, Robert, I was so sorry. Why did it have to happen to you? Oh, you didn't deserve. All these different, expressions people make. I wonder, well, what's the problem? I'm happy to be here. But once I saw the picture of my face and why everyone felt so bad, then I realized, this is the reason there. This is why so many people have been. But for me, I'm used to it. I feel okay. I never really, and one of the other reasons I think, for me at least, by God's grace, I had no pain whatsoever. And even after this transplant, I know we're going to talk about that, Luke, but after the transplant, the same day, the next morning, I never had any pain. So it's just, others can see and they can feel empathy and they can feel sympathy and they can, but for me, I'm really just kind of trying to go about my father's business.
So, yeah, wow. So I believe, Jen, well, not I believe, in the beginning, I stated that I believe Robert's burns were about, was it 60%, Robert? Or
It just depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So there's not really a definitive percentage of on that. So they came to you about the transplant, and I'm sure, I know with transplantation, it's a very lengthy process generally with, and this is organ transplantation, of course. So you got to go, you got to have your coordinator and they're, and things like that. And they got to psych you and psychological evaluation when I say psych you. So with your transplant, though, a face being such a rare, one of the rarest transplants, can you just kind of tell us, just if you said this, forgive the redundancy, but how did they present that to you? How did that come about?
As I mentioned, the Dr. Chang told me that he had a friend that had and when Dr. Pomahawk called me, he felt that I would be a good candidate for a face transplant. The other options were uh, reconstructive surgery. Another option was, as I mentioned, uh, plastic surgery, which would give me lips with no sensitivity. So he asked me if I'd consider coming to be evaluated, and of course I told him yes. Um, and I, Bella, I just had the green light, if you will, spiritually speaking, to continue on with the process. I knew God would stop me wherever, or at least give me some kind of unction, whether to continue to follow the instructions and the directions, the advice of these physicians or not. And so, as a result of that, we continued on to consider the face transplant.
Okay.
I
And
love his rendition, by the way.
right. I know.
Because I just want to back up, because
Yeah.
when he was in the hospital in the coma and when he came out of the coma, it was very traumatic for the family, particularly for his daughter. And so, as we sort of, move forward towards the face transplant, he just very eloquently told you a part of the process. But I think what he left out that's really important is one of the first things that Dr. Pomahawk said is this procedure is life threatening. So while it was easy for him, he didn't feel any pain through this entire process. In the back of our minds is this procedure could be life threatening. And so I think when you factor that into deciding whether or not you want to do this, as Ebony, his daughter, thought about it, she said, you know what? I don't want him to go through this. I don't want to go through it again because I feel like I'm having to relive this moment in time where I might lose my dad again.
Yeah.
And so I just really want to put the emphasis on he's blessed in that he did not feel pain. He doesn't feel pain, but his family and his loved ones were highly stressed and really brought to challenge on dealing with, where he was and what his survival would be.
Thank you for sharing that, Rick. Actually, I was gonna ask you about that part as well, how the family felt about that, because family plays such a big role in this transplantation process. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
we are the victims of the illnesses, so but they have to deal with it and live with it psychologically and
Yeah.
try to figure out what is the best thing for my dad or my mom. My children had to, live through it as well. And I'm sure, and definitely not to the extreme, in my opinion, of what, Robert endured. But what I want to also ask you, Robert, about that, because of the fact that the face transplant being such an interesting one to me, is being, with us being people of color, and various skin tone variations, of course, in comparison to, Caucasians, it would kind of seem to me like there could possibly be some difficulty with skin matching. Can you kind of explain to us how that process worked?
Yes, a great deal of adjustments had to be made. I was, the oldest patient, at least 10 years older than anyone else that had had a face transplant. And so that was a major factor. Uh, and and as a black man, they did not have a color chart, if you will, to have an idea of the pigmentation or what would be required, if there would be any other types of adjustments. And obviously, there are certain diseases that we would be more inclined to uh, be attracted to or inherit than maybe another ethnic group. So all of those factors were not just considered, but we had to risk those factors. I mean, nobody knows, and they certainly didn't have the research data to add to what we were going through or what we were considering this face transplant. So they devised the chart, the color chart, 18 different colors. Uh, the darkest was 18, the lightest, of course, was 1. And I chose color 5, anywhere between 5 and 16 at the time.
But Chelsea, just tell them what the chart was when you started.
It was only 3. It was they had they had really no chart, but they identified 3 different pigmentations,
Yes.
and they were all, of course, Caucasian. So with me, they had a major, not to mention when even after the transplant, my skin, they can't tell whether I'm sick or the way they identified to one another as Caucasians or very light complected people is their skin would be pale or red or other pink. It could be any variation. So they were used to being able to look on the surface, external surface, and tell, oh, this guy is not, it's not going so well. But with me, they couldn't just look at me and tell. So they had to wait until something, if you will, major manifests before they could do something about it. So as a result of that, I did have probably more infections than the average person. I assume. Each person is different because our bodies and our makeup is so different. So I can't say mine was more or less, but it was a considerable difference in how they had to approach evaluating my ongoing medication. I noticed the question.
I was going to say Chelsea, but as a result of Chelsea and what really came out of his procedure is a scale that was originally 1 to 3 or 4 in terms of color shades went to 1 to 18. So he was allowed to then choose between, what did you go, 5 to 16?
Well, actually, the 1 to 18 was really all African American. That did not include Caucasians at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But my point is, because of your procedure, there are now a variety of skin choices, whereas before that, you were forced into 1 to 4 skin colors. So it was, profound that, this procedure, and that was really, due to Dr. Pomahawk, who was not only agile, but just out of the box in his thinking about doing this procedure for a person of color.
Wow. Yes, I would imagine that it's like you set the tone for, the future. God forbid there are other African Americans, Robert, that need facial transplants. And so, I was going to get back to this question from Steve. I'm just saying I'm pretty sure, but you can answer it for the audience. Are you on anti-rejection meds?
Yes.
Yes.
Every transplant patient, no matter what the organ or stem cell or whatever, will be on some form of medication. And as far as the organs are concerned, including my face, this medication could be for the rest of my life, at least a few of them. But it started out in a great amount for some obvious reasons. They knew the standard, but with a face transplant and an African American on top of that, they had to be extra cautious. And they probably gave me more just to be, if you will, on the safe side, so to speak.
So just to be specific, there are 3 medications, if I'm not mistaken, Chelsea, that are specific to avoiding an organ rejection, right? So these 3 medications that you're on, you cannot miss. It's not like you can haphazardly go, I'm going to skip that today. Each time you miss one of those medications, you increase the chance of the body rejecting the organ by 100%. So that's how significant those medications are. In addition to that, he has about 18 or so medications that you've been taking.
Now it's down to 16 in the morning and 6 in at noon, and I have 8 in the evening.
Okay, the same med or a variation of meds? Okay. Are you on, do you know the name of some of them? Like, for instance, I'm on Celseptin and Varsis.
Yeah, and Varsis is that's you got to have, no matter who. So those 3, I'm Tacro, prednisone on occasion. And there's 2 or 3 that, as Ricky said, that I do have to take. And there's also questions I see about tissue immune suppression. And yes, that is a factor because we're all learning. The physicians are learning, the researchers, the scientists, they're all learning. And of course, I'm learning. But fortunately, this process, if it weren't for God allowing this to happen, who knows how many times. I was in the hospital last year, 8 separate occasions, and yet we went right through it without any pain. I only knew that I had this because weekly we take blood, and as a result of that, they call me and say, "Well, we need you to come in."
So it was 8 separate occasions that were because of infection and potential rejection of the organ, just to put that in perspective.
That's what, okay, and That's exactly what I was going to say. Steve had asked, I'm pretty sure what he's asking is, did they explain to you what a rejection for you would look like? So like for recipients, organ, usually, the first thing is, like for me, I would get an elevated creatinine level probably. I mean, really, really higher than normal. That can be a sign of rejection. Nausea, vomiting, pain at the organ site. So with it being your face, what did they tell you, could be potential symptoms of a rejection?
It's primarily my blood. And one of the reasons is because when we're looking at a full face transplant, it is quite unique in that I have received another head. This is
face.
I didn't have any head.
Not a head, but a face.
Well, you see, this.
Yes.
All of this here, that's all the donor.
Wow.
And this is another nose. Someone asked me about my eye. Well, when I got out the fire, my eye was permanently damaged because of the fire. So, and of course, my lips and my nose and my ear. So, to someone that says, "Oh, you got another face," I have another forehead. I have another cheek. I have another lips. I have another. So all of this, the centering is different, and this particular individual's face was a little larger than mine, and so all of this causes the nerve endings have to be connected, not just the blood vessels, but I get a great deal of sensation. We call them zingers. They just shoot. They're just all over because the nerve endings, even 2 years later, I'm 70 now, and so 2 years later, they're still connecting all over. And it's going to take longer for my lips to connect. That's why I haven't yet attempted to kiss my daughter's cheeks, because the sensitivity in my lips are not, the lips are there, but the sensitivity has not reached that point yet. So that's one of the reasons why I could laugh along with you. If you see in the picture where I was burned, I could smile, but now this is the best I can do. I can't show my teeth or anything.
It looks good. We know you're smiling.
He does look good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm still getting used to, it's not, the sensitivity hasn't, so I can't make the facial expressions that,
So here's the other thing. I wish we had Dr. Pamahak who could really explain this, but I think from our understanding what we should explain to the audience, which is hard to comprehend, but skin is an organ. So it is where his incisions are. So if you take his incision and think about it coming along here, that becomes the organ. And so that is a part of what, if the body rejects, it's going to reject his face. And that would be where he would be in jeopardy of losing the organ. So even though it's not a kidney, it's a face. If you think about it in terms of the face being an organ, which is the skin and hair, because I saw questions about the hair. One of the most amazing things about this process was literally hours after the procedure, he started to grow facial hair, which was just mind-boggling. But because it is an organ, it started to produce that hair. I mean, that literally is where I see him looking the most different as a result, is the facial hair and the hair on his head.
Wow. Hours. Yeah, that
hours. I mean, it was literally when he came out of surgery, even though he can't smile right now, there was an expression and movement in his face minutes after he came out of surgery. He started to talk and you could see the face starting to move. Now, some of that was the understructure moving and the face was moving, but it takes time for all the nerves to connect. And as they connect, you get more movement. I'm sorry, Chelsea, go ahead.
Yeah, a little note that no bandages was either.
There were no bandages, which was amazing. I mean, literally a Band-Aid was how he came out of surgery. So he was a little swollen, but he came out with this new face, and it was pretty spectacular because you just can't fathom that after this near 18, 20 hours surgery that a person would come out with a new face.
I was getting ready to ask because someone had asked how long was the procedure and early on, and that was going to be my next question. So like you said, Ricky, about 20 hours.
And that discounts, the part that I love that was really had my adrenaline going was when the doctors left to go procure the face. So we're talking about actual surgery time as to when they arrived back and they started, converting the face to the new face. But there is travel time to procure the face. You get it, and then you have to come back, and then you start, the actual procedure. So all in, it's, probably 30, 40 hours.
Wow, that's a long time. So Robert, let me ask you this: after the transplant was complete, and I'm going to get to you guys questions next. Those last two guys that just came up. After, because I want to kind of stay with this since we're already in this realm right here. But after, the transplant was finished, and I was going to say, and the bandages were removed, because I literally would have just thought he was going to be like a mummy with bandages. Okay, so I'm amazed by that. Let me just say, with some Band-Aids. But when you looked into the mirror for the first time, I would really like to know, what were you thinking and how did you feel? I mean, like we say, when you looked at that man in the mirror, who did you see? Did you still see yourself? Or did you?
No, I didn't see myself. I saw someone else. And that I would have to get used to. But I felt the same. I just, I realized that I don't look the same.
Wow.
And so for me, what I saw was my godfather with hair for the first time. And as I say, if I grew hair, my kids would be like, "Where's my dad? Can you bring my dad out?" So for me to see him with hair and facial hair was really significantly different. But when you think about the way I explain to people, as I see him, the first thing I noticed were lips, because that was our goal, was to get lips so he could eat, drink, and kiss his daughter, right?
Yeah.
So that was significant. But to me, he had the same face structure. He had the same eyes. He had the same teeth. He had the same expression. So there was no way I would not be able to see my godfather in him. So, but it's very different. I liken it to if you got some type of surgery to change your nose or your lips, there would be a difference, right? You would notice a difference. But the reality is the same person is still there for me. If you talk to Ebony, his daughter, she feels exactly like Robert does, which is he's a totally different person. But I have to remain very steadfast and firm. For me, I see my godfather. He has not changed. And there's just too much similarity to who he was before. His spirit, the structure, eyes, nose, not nose, but teeth, that I cannot accept that this is the same person. So I'm the odd man out, and I fight the two of them, and we we continue to move forward.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that's what happens in families, right? Everybody has a different perspective. And I think that's what's really important about my godfather's story is that not everybody has to agree on everything that happens with this process. What's important is that everybody has a perspective. And as
Right.
long as you respect everybody's purvey or their view, then it's all okay.
Exactly. So I'm going to go on and present Leslie's question as far as, because I was going to ask you about your donor. So she's saying, did the donor look similar or have close features to yours? But also, I was going to ask, just again, in the world of transplantation, recipients of deceased donors, they do allow to send a letter to the donor family, and whether or not they choose to answer it is, of course, totally up to them. But I was going to ask you, in conjunction with Leslie's question, did you ever make an attempt to reach out to your donor family?
Well, I don't know how similar his features would be. This is basically what I see. So, and the confidentiality is very important. So, in terms of what he looked like, I really I don't know I don't know that, but in terms of reaching out, I have yet to make a concerted effort. I have let the individuals, the organization that actually handles that, I've let them know that I am interested in meeting them, and I have been told that they are interested in meeting me. I don't know when that will occur. Since the pandemic, that's put things off, and recovery as a result of the infections and so on. So I think this will take place. I look forward to it. Maybe, hopefully, maybe next year, when I'll be a little bit stronger and able to get out, a little bit more. But so far, things have come along pretty well, and I hope to meet them soon.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think people discount what your structure, your skeleton does to defining who and what your face is. So there's complexion, their teeth, their eyes, and there's nose. So in this case, the thing that might be different is the nose and lips, but his face structure is exactly the same. So the answer would be no, they don't look alike. You could take a face, remove it from one person, put it on another person, and it's going to look different depending on how wide, narrow, tall, short the next person's face is. So we're, up against that, but we don't know because we have not seen the donor. But for me, as I look at Chelsea, as I said, and that's really my reference, his complexion, similar, not exactly the same, but similar enough. The thing that makes him very different to me is hair, both on his head and on his face. That makes him different. And then his face was a little more chiseled. So now I would say his face is not as chiseled as it was before. But, some of that you could look at, like I look at myself from 10 years ago. I'm not as chiseled as I was.
Who is?
So there's a little bit of difference that could happen because of age. But, just to help the audience out, for me, I really gravitate to, I feel like he's very similar to who he was, but I think that's mostly because of his spirit. Like when I look at him, he just has not changed to me. But I will reiterate that his daughter, who I imagine is much more closer to him, says he looks very different. He says he looks different. So it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Robert? I didn't mean to cut
When I
you
look
off.
in the mirror, when I look in the mirror, I see another person's face. I just happen to know it belongs to me now. But that's what I see. And I don't know the age of the donor. That information. I mean, I think I do know how old
Similar in age. We
but I've
don't know
heard.
exact.
Yeah.
But just for confidentiality, Chelsea, similar in age, close enough.
Yeah.
But a little different.
Yeah. So, but another question was why? I mean, had my personality changed? And I think that would be up to others to see or to express in their own way. For me, I know that there has been a greater dimension for me that far exceeds what I thought and felt before the accident. Not the transplant, but the accident itself. It's just illuminated my desire to follow our Heavenly Father wherever He allow. He's the one that allowed that drunk driver to run into me. And it's okay. You know, I mean, he could have let the car swerve away. See? But then who would have gone down in the valley to experience this wonderful joy that I have? Somebody's got to tell the wonderful story. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went through. And did they complain when they came out? Of course not. They had a greater appreciation for what God could do for them. And so in terms of, I don't know if we call it personality, but I don't want to look back, nor do I look, oh, I wish you could recover. Full recovery. Are we praying for? Don't pray. Why would I want full recovery to go back to what I used to? No, let me learn what God has for me in this new day. See, this is a new dispensation, and I want to be around with my eyes, with clean eye salve, that I might be able to see what God is showing in this new day.
And so for the record, no, he hasn't changed. He was exactly like this before. So the wonderful news is he is who he is with greater perspective. Uh-oh, we can't hear.
A part of it. Everything that happens to us allows, especially something that devastating that we survive, in my opinion, should allow us to grow in some way. Like you said, Robert, God allowed that, but there had to be growth in it. It was for a reason. And, I can clearly see that based on, everything that you've shared. Like you said, there's obviously, you kind of answered that was my question, how it allowed you to grow. You've already said that now, that there has been so much growth in you in other areas since that time. I saw a question pop up. I don't know if you even know or if you wanted to answer it. People are asking, how was the drunk driver charged, and was he okay? I mean, I don't know.
The answer is yes on both ends. He was charged. He was given 4 years, from what I understand, and he had 3 DUIs during that. So that's what they gave him. And what was the other question?
That was it.
That was it. You answered them. That was it.
Okay.
And then early on too, I believe someone asked, and I know I mentioned this to you, and if you don't have it handy or available, someone asked if you had a photo of what you looked like prior to the accident. But you may not have anything like that in your home readily available, which is fine.
I sent you some pictures.
Oh, yeah, I just meant a hard copy. I meant they were, I think, probably something you could show. But if you don't have a hard copy of yourself, that's fine.
Oh, no,
I can try to pull one up. But you can also go to robertchelsea.org and you'll see what we call the 3 phases of grace, which is before, after the accident, and then post-surgery.
There you go, guys, robertchelsea.org. And yes, I believe I saw Leslie asked if Robert is okay with everyone, they were inquiring if you had a Facebook page. If you want to share that, I'll let you share that.
Oh, yes, I have a Facebook page, and I don't know how you, Robert Chelsea, just ask, I guess. And you can also use Donor's Dream.
Yeah, Donor's Dream as well.
Is that?
Yeah, but you'll get more information with robertchelsea.org.
Okay.
So you'll get information on Robert's story, his before, after, post-surgery pictures, and then post-surgery stories.
And they can also Google Robert Chelsea, and that way they'll see a lot of different phases of transplants. Just Google my name if they like.
Okay. Yeah, Ricky's looking to see if he has a photo
generally it would just
him.
come up.
And so, Robert, is it still a little challenging for you to eat and drink still? Is that still a process right now?
It's much better, but I still have some drooling a little bit when I try to eat straight up like this. So I still tilt back somewhat because I don't have quite the control of my lips fully control. So I can now eat. I can drink without using a syringe. I can drink out of a straw.
Oh, there you go.
But I can't drink. I can't drink out of a cup or a bottle. But I can drink from a straw. So I'm still in speech therapy, and even the pathologist, she has done 9. She's worked with 9 face transplant patients, more than anybody in the world. Because as a result of that, she's working with me.
So Chelsea, how old are you in this picture? I'm looking at Ebony. Ebony looks like she's 17, 18, but how old are you?
I have no clue how old I was then.
Oh, come on. 35, 40.
He looks no more than
40. I couldn't think, because Ebony was born, I was around 40 when she was born.
All right, so then you're 55.
Maybe. 55? Maybe. Ebony looks so young now. She looks like a teenager. 32. Yeah.
Right. She looks young. But anyway, it puts you somewhere between 50 plus or minus, 7 years.
Yeah,
Jared said, I'm sorry.
Jared asked, where is Stampman? That's the business I was in before the accident, providing custom stamps and name badges, signs, and various marketing products. As a result of that, the wonderful company that I worked with, they continued to handle all my customers and send my daughter the commissions, all while I was, even to this very day for that matter. So that's been 8 years. God's grace, they have provided that service because I couldn't provide it for myself.
Wow. Yeah. Everybody's just shouting out some accolades. Leslie was saying, wow, you look younger now. Leslie over there getting her flirt on. I gotta call her. And my buddy Debbie was just saying, what a great story. Thank to you too, Ricky, that, for you guys coming and sharing this amazing story. And journey. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's just such a treat to have someone like you and somebody that has undergone something that the average person could probably not easily get past emotionally like that. And just to be able to witness, your faith and God and just your, just your humbleness. And that is just amazing. That really is amazing. And so, I always share scripture with my guests. I kind of pray about that a couple of days before the show and kind of ask God, if no one else has any questions, I'm going to start to kind of bring us to a close. But back to what I was saying, I kind of like to centralize it around what I feel about, that person and what they've undergone. And you and I kind of touched on this, which was under Psalms 23. And I think for pretty much everybody, even if you don't know this scripture by heart, you have heard it because it's generally a passage that you will always hear at burials, which is, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And my friend, you have been in the face of all of that, because to me, Psalms 23 is about life and death. And it's about being good, and it's about being worthy of our trust, and just simply, God is the shepherd, and he cares for his sheep, and you are that sheep that he did not leave behind on that day. He allowed it to happen, and he allowed it for his reasons. And look how you have persevered through everything that you had to endure for that 20 months, I believe Ricky said.
Right.
Well, that's very nice.
Go ahead, Chelsea. I was just going to say, and the most amazing thing about my godfather is the reason why he's here tonight is not really to talk about his story, but it is really to promote becoming a donor and how significant it can be for somebody else's life. And so that's why we're here, is to just really share the importance of donating, or at least signing up to donate. As my godfather always says, one human eyeball can help 8 different people. That's how significant becoming a donor is. When you look at the statistics, African Americans represent about 13% of the United States population. We donate at about that rate, but we have a need in excess of about 36%. And that's because of different illnesses. So while we donate at what we represent, there is a lag or a lack of donors upwards, into that 36%. So between the 13 and 36% is the need. So if you're not a donor, please sign up. We have some real challenges where people feel like if you sign up to become a donor and you are somehow involved in an accident, you won't be saved. These things are not true. Please do your research and understand what it is and how significant it is to create a legacy of being a donor.
Thank you.
There's only 2 things I'd like to.
Yeah, please. And go ahead, Robert.
Well, those two, it's both regarding the Psalms 23 that you mentioned.
Mhm.
The the well, the first thing is uh, I'm grateful that I was able, when David said these things and wrote these things out, we all might have read it and trusted and believe it and have faith in it. But David wasn't writing it just poetically. He was writing it because he experienced when he was in valleys of shadows of death, he didn't have to fear evil. God was actually with him. And I'm saying this because uh, you don't have to just trust and believe. He will be with you. Uh, I, no matter all the years I've gone through believing in Scripture, I'm so glad that I had a chance to actually be with Him and know for myself that He carried me through. He is the one that fed me on the lily. He provided the lilies in my valley. I want people to know that. The last thing is that uh, the shadows are just that. They're only shadows of death. No,
Right.
no matter what you go through, they're only shadows.
Mhm. 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 Amen. Yeah, yeah. And so what would be your last encouraging, if you guys can hear me, I know I was off camera for a minute. What would be your last encouraging words? Not that you need any, because you just you said a mouthful in this whole period of time, Robert, but what would be what would you share with the audience as far as, here's the thing. In reality, everybody is not capable of the type of motivation that you have,
Right.
and that is a journey. That is a journey that comes with having a real, true, and wholesome relationship with God. Unfortunately, everybody's not quite there yet. So what would you say to those who who need that, because this relationship, are the things that get us through these types of storms. So what would you say to them to encourage them?
You said it all, and you can say a lot of things. Christ said a lot of things, and it didn't make a difference. They still ended up killing him. So if a person doesn't have it in their heart, I hope one day they do.
Mhm. Amen. That's what we hope. And the scriptures are the way to get us there. I tell people all the time, one of the greatest things you can learn is to try to memorize a scripture or two once a month, because when you need to call them out for anything going on in your life, that's the greatest time to bring those scriptures up. So thank you so much to you, Ricky. You were amazing too. I don't want to take away from you. Your goddad is so fortunate to have you as a godson. That's another reason why God called them godsons. My godson, Roger Reynolds, saved my life. He
Mhm.
gave me, as a living donor, one of his kidneys, and God knew what he was doing when he created godchildren. So I know he's proud of you. I am grateful that he has you, not only for his godson, but also as a support base for him for things like this. And you continue to keep doing what you're doing and inspiring in the way that you're assisting with that. And Robert, Mr. Phenomenal, we love you. Thank you so much for, just like Ricky said, this is more about encouraging people to be donors. And we know this is a very arduous task, especially among, people of color. But you know what? I'm having faith that we're going to get there. You are the living proof of that. you know, and your heart, I mean, you have poured into everybody tonight. I can definitely say that on this show. We have all learned from you tonight. And we pray that you just continue to excel in your endeavors and stay healthy, you know, and you and I will continue to be in touch. I'm not going anywhere. So,
we hope not, Bella. Listen, and thank you for giving us a platform to share. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are awesome. And thank you so much. Everybody is chiming in. Best wishes to you guys and safe health. And hey, we love you. Thank you so much for joining us. And you all have a blessed night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good.
Wow. My heart is full. And I think I could probably say the same thing for you all. There's really not much else to say. I just, this has been such a moving show. It continues to teach me the importance of my relationship with God, and also most importantly, how important it is for all of us as warriors. I can't believe I didn't bring tissue to the table, but to remain humble and grateful for this gift that God has given up for us, and my future warriors on the show to remain optimistic and faithful and prayerful that God is going to get that organ to you that you need. So I think it's important for us to just check ourselves on anything in our lives that we may need to straighten up a little bit, you know, to continue to have a giving heart. You know, scripture says, give and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And it's as simple as that. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining Bella's Hope for Healing. Again, don't forget to smash the likes, the share buttons, because, hey, more people need to see this show. More people need to see what a great example that Robert is to us. And you guys continue to remain safe. You know, we still got COVID out here, so stay safe. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Yes, we did. Everybody got so much from this interview. I love you guys. Thanks so much, Leslie, for joining and all of your questions. And you guys have a wonderful night. Remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I. And it's nothing you can do about it. Bye.